So Kyosho has just wowed everybody by entering the very tiny truck portion of the crawling community, and this is their new Mini-Z 4x4 Toyota 4Runner, and this is a pretty awesome replica of the real thing. They also actually have a Suzuki Jimny, which looks awesome as well, but I really like this. I mean, I remember seeing these when I was a kid out on the streets here in New England, and just love the way they look. And of course, they've become just like an icon in off-roading, and Kyosho just went all out recreating this thing in such a small scale. This is 1/24 scale, and this comes ready to run. All you need to do is drop in some AAA batteries into the car and into the radio system, and you could go out and crawl in your backyard, you could crawl out in parks, and of course you could crawl inside your home pretty much anywhere, which makes this such a great model kit. But let's start off by talking about some of the details, and the body is just a wow factor on this. I mean, there's some really cool stuff going on underneath, but the body detail on this is fantastic. So this is a hard body. They've got a metallic paint on there, and it comes in two different colors. They've got that like burgundy red, and then of course this charcoal gray, and then there's a matte roof on the top. I mean, the paintwork is just fantastic on this. And they even detailed around the windows. We've got wiper blades on here. We've got rubber mirrors, so if you roll this thing over, the mirrors just bend back. I mean, even down to the door handles are chrome, and the locks are painted. The fender flares here are painted in a matte black. Up front, we've got a really nicely detailed grille. We've got the Toyota logo in there, headlights, signal markers, and then in the back, defroster lines in it, which I just think is just amazing that they went that far into the detail of it. And of course, the rear taillights are painted as well, but the body is just incredible on this. As you can see, it's got the spare tire out back, and then we've got some really cool off-road bumpers on there, complete with little tiny D-rings on it. So that is just killer. They nailed it on the look of this body. It's obviously a licensed body since it's got the Toyota 4Runner logos on there. But overall, just really cool. All I'd say is watch yourself with the matte black finish on the top. I actually already scraped it with my wedding ring on the top, but it looks awesome. And it's really easy to take this body off. They've got this body mounting system, so as you can see, there's no body clips on top, which is awesome. But there's just these two little wires on each side, and you push them back a little bit, and then they slide into these little body posts on the bottom of the body, and it just slides right out. Well, of course, I'm on camera, so it's not going to slide out easily, but they do slide out pretty easily. There we go. And as you can see, there are those little body posts on the bottom, but really well detailed. Smoke windows, so you can see into the inside of it. And this pops just right back on. So you slide it down, you push it, you'll hear it click, and the body is secured again. You don't have to worry about losing any body clips. All right, let's take a look at the inside of this because it's got some great features for such a tiny truck. It does have a metal ladder frame chassis, so not plastic, which is super cool on something this small, and it's really a rigid chassis for the size of this vehicle. We've got AAA batteries up in the front, which makes it really easy for you to just bring this thing home, open up your closet, grab some batteries out, toss it in here, and actually the way that they're placed keeps the center of gravity really low, so this thing's going to handle really well. Up front is a servo. It's a 5-wire servo, not a standard servo, but I'm going to assume that it gives plenty of torque to turn these wheels, and the steering angle on this is just amazing. I mean, look at all that throw that servo is going to give you. And let's move on back to the motor. So it's a 130 motor, high torque motor for its size, of course. And back here is the speed controller and receiver. It's a combo unit, but you go and plug a gyro in there if you want to, which I thought was interesting. And you can even plug in LED lights. But as you can see, it's compact, really well laid out, and you don't really have to do much other than replace the batteries. And I do believe that they are going to have a LiPo option. Don't quote me on that, but they might have that. And to get the batteries out, all you have to do is squeeze this little center plate, and it pops the plate out so you can access the batteries. All right, so we've talked about the electronics now. We've got the frame down, and let's move on to the suspension. So we've got friction shocks here. They are just springs over a composite body. But what's really nice about this setup is they go and lock in the springs. So the spring perch can't pop off if you roll it over, and the way the ball situates into the axle, nothing's really going to come apart there. So you don't have to worry about ball ends popping off with this. In fact, pretty much every ball end on here is captured except for the steering tie rods, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But the suspension seems to work really well. The bottom links are metal tie rods, and there is an upper A-arm that actually has clearance in the rear. So it's a different A-arm in the rear than it is in the front. but the way that all works together, the suspension really works well on this. It feels really smooth, and I can't wait to see how it actually works out on the trails. Now, the driveline on this, it does have a transmission in the center of it, and from what I read, you could go and swap out the pinion gears. They make it easy to swap out the pinion gears. This is a media sample kit, so I don't have those gears. It seemed like those gears are going to come with it, so hopefully that's the case. Because this is also a media sample, I didn't actually get any instructions or any of the stuff that usually comes with it. What you see right here is all I got. But back to the transmission. So it looks like it's a durable transmission. We've got sliding universal drive shafts down to the axles, both front and rear, and they use a crown gear type of setup. So this thing kind of freewheels pretty smooth. So when you're going down descents, you're not gonna have a notchy feeling or you know, odd type of drag to it. And from what I've read, the speed controller actually is designed for crawler use. So hopefully this has some great drag brake to it, and the system has enough torque to crawl up stuff. But if you're familiar with Kyosho and the Mini-Zs, they go the extra mile here to make sure everything works. They're on-road Mini-Zs. They work really, really well. For such a small car, they handle awesome. So I'm guessing that Kyosho put all that technology into here, all that thought process, and they're going to make sure that this thing works. So we've talked about pretty much everything now in the chassis. Finally, let's talk about the wheels and tires. So we've got black spoke rims on here and Nitto Ridge Grappler tires, which look awesome, nice and soft. And right behind there, it mounts to kind of a three-prong type of axle assembly. There are universals in the front and a straight shaft in the rear, of course, and everything rides on ball bearings inside the transmission. So yes, something this size, this small, still rides on ball bearings, which is awesome to see on such a small vehicle. But again, this looks like it's going to handle really well. Now this radio system here, it's a small radio, but actually I really like Kyosho radios. It's got a nice foam grip on the steering wheel. We've got our trim dials right here on the face, nice and easy to access, all the way down to steering dual rate and steering trim and throttle trim. 4 AAA batteries go in the bottom, and that's just a nice small radio to have for this vehicle. And you can go and pair it with some of Kyosho's other radio systems. So if you already have one of their radios, you could go and pair it to this car. All right, I think it's time for me to stop talking. We need to go outside and take the Mini-Z 4x4 for a crawl. Okay, I'll stop playing with it. The Kyosho Mini-Z 4x4 is an absolute blast to drive. That's all you need to know. We'll see you guys back at the next video. Oh, I'm going to go through the whole performance part, of course. I took this out in my backyard. I drove it around inside my house. I took it down to the local park, and it really is a blast to drive. I had a great time driving this, and I could see this, just fitting all types of drivers, from entry-level drivers. This is a ready-to-set. All over the box, it says your first RC car, and this is going to be a lot of fun for experienced modelers as well. It works great. That's what it comes down to. As long as you kind of remember that there is a ABS body on the top of this, it is a little bit on the top heavy side. And you got to watch your inclines and descents, because if you go on too much of an angle, it will roll over. However, the suspension articulates well. It goes over bumps really well. It's got a lot of steering to it. It's even pretty quick for such a small vehicle. And overall, it's just a great little crawler. If you're getting into the hobby, you're going to have fun with it. It's going to be a blast just to go anywhere, drop this thing down and drive it. It's that easy to use. It uses batteries that you find anywhere in your house or at the local grocery store, and everything about it is just easy, along with looking fantastic. I mean, this thing looks really cool out there on the trails. You guys saw the action footage where I took it down to the local park, driving over mossy rocks and through the trails. It did really well. You got to watch ground clearance too, especially if you're used to a larger model. It's not going to do the same things. However, it is very capable. The tires did fairly well on some of the rocks. Other rocks, not so much. I had some wheel spin with it. I did notice that there's a little bit of torque twist. For those of you that are into RC that want a little bit more of a technical review here, it's got a little bit of torque twist to it. It's got a little bit of bump steer, but I really like how it articulates over stuff, and it has a nice smooth throttle feel to it. It has a nice smooth descent as well. The drag brake on there, I think, is pretty fair for the size of this vehicle. I'm sure they did their best with the electronics, and I think it shows. I mean, even the radio system is comfortable to hold. So overall, it looks pretty awesome. And I bet you they'll use this chassis more. I mean, they've got the Jimny out there, but it is a very capable chassis. It's a lot of fun. It's priced at about $200. I think it's $199.99, and I'm sure some of that is licensing of the body that you're paying for and licensing of the tires on here. But again, Mini-Zs, they're a refined RC car. Don't just think of it as a tiny car, so it should be cheap. Kyosho puts a lot of design and engineering into it, and the parts quality is very good. So I could see that justification there for the $199 price. And I'm sure that if you pick one of these up, you're going to agree they're just so much fun.